What is up, everyone? Welcome to another weekly news video. We've only got two topics to talk to today. One is a direct comment from Ken Goldin himself based on my video from yesterday that I think is pretty interesting. You guys are going to want to see that. And then also we'll talk to this recent, news of Logan Paul getting back into the hobby, this time with sports cards, after spending probably upwards of $1 million on getting a LeBron rookie card and also a Michael Jordan rookie card. There's a few things here that I want to talk to that looks like, people are getting quite excited about this, but it seems it's a little bit misplaced, and I'll share my thoughts on that a little bit later on. Now, for those of you that saw my video yesterday, you would have heard me talk about some issues that I had with, Goldin auctions and how I essentially bought a bunch of different things. I bought some cards and then also some comic books and faced some challenges. Now, in that video, I talked to the fact that these items appeared to have been lost, and there seemed to have been some confusion internally out of Goldin as to where these books actually were. Now, for those of you that haven't seen the video, I'll just quickly let you know that I won some cards, I won some books. These books took a long time to show up in my vault when they were all there. Me thinking the vault worked the way that I thought it did, I decided to ship them all to ship my cards. When my package arrived, the two books were missing. And this created a bit of confusion because it made me, think that my books were basically maybe stolen, lost in the mail. Something basically went wrong. The Goldin, customer service team was very, very good, as I did talk to in that video. They were actually fantastic. I want to reiterate again, their customer support team is far and away the best experience that I've had within this industry. Normally you get a communication with someone and they're not looking to try and help, but the Goldin team looked like they did in fact want to help. The one challenge there though was they seemed a bit confused as to what actually happened. It took some time for them to actually get to the bottom of the situation. So I'm not sure how Ken saw my video. I'm not sure if it's because it was raised in the Sports Card Radio Live on Thursday, US time, Friday, Australian time, but he sent me a DM late last night, Australian time, right before I went to bed, and basically just said, introduced himself, gave me his email address, and he said it's also on his website, but basically also gave some clarification in that if I ever had any issues in the future, just to contact him directly to see if we can sort of, get to the bottom of things, right? He basically said, I'll put you in touch with the right person out of Goldin, which I thought was pretty good. And he basically said his email's on the website, so if anyone else wants to do the same thing, they can. Off the back of that, I basically talked to him about my situation, and he said that they've already put in place new measures out of Goldin to try and make sure that this stuff doesn't happen again. Now, I want to reiterate, I'm not paid for by Goldin or anything like that. I have no sponsorships or anything. This is just something that he messaged to me and sent it in an email that he said was also fine for me to talk to today. And I'll put it up on screen, but it reads, "Hi Dan, thanks for taking the time to discuss, and I appreciate your compliment about the Goldin customer service based on your video today, which clearly describes the confusion that shipping from two different locations on the same order can cause, those locations being from the office in New Jersey and then also the PSA vault in Delaware. I've instructed the Goldin operations team to prepare a standard document that will go in every single order that was shipped from two different locations to inform the customer when they receive the first shipment that it's going to be a partial shipment and the other things are going to come at a later date." And I'm talking verbatim here, but you can read for yourself. This way, there'll be no concerns or worries on the customers that they're missing part of their order when a partial shipment is received, which I think, is a really good thing. Now, some of you might say, well, you've got a YouTube channel, that's how you got some traction here. But again, that's the purpose of what I'm trying to do with this channel, right? I'm not necessarily calling things out, but when I'm having things and experiencing things, I want to bring it front of mind. So number one, collectors can understand what I explained in that video and reach out to the customer support team directly and explain the situation. But number two, have instances like this where, I can communicate with certain people to try and get some change and benefit for the hobby. And that's not meant to be a pat on my back. It's more so just to do a pat on the back of Ken. Now, some people won't like that, but one of the big issues that we have in this hobby is that so many of these businesses completely lack transparency, right? They don't care about transparency. They don't want to communicate. When issues arise, they want to shy away from it. Now, yes, this issue is not that big in the grand scheme of things because their customer support team was helpful, it was just really, really slow. The confusion is unnecessary, right? Basically, shipping things and not being aware of it as a customer is not necessary. So it is small, but for them to come out and say, you know what, number one, we're going to communicate with you. Number two, this is what we've already put in place to make sure no confusion happens again, I think is a good pat on the back for Ken and Goldin, in my opinion, a good check in the box. Now, again, some people won't like that, but this is what we want to see through channels like mine, through channels like Sports Card Radio. You want to see instances where you're, calling out things and suggesting things, and trying to educate people and trying to bring things front of mind. We want that tangible change, right? And I think this is this is one of those things. Now, I spoke for a long time on that. If there's any questions, please drop it down below. But again, if you're experiencing something very similar with Goldin, just, reach out to their customer support team, because again, they can be a little bit confused at the very start of things, but they are definitely the most willing of all the customer supports that I've dealt with that actually want to help. And that involves PWCC, that involves, eBay, that involves some of these, group breakers, that involves some of these other, businesses like PSA, BGS, etc. They are head and shoulders above the rest. And I think they deserve some credit for that, because that's what we basically need as customers, businesses that actually care. Now, obviously, there are other questions to ask about some of these businesses and some of the things they do and don't do. But in this specific case, I think they've done a really good job, and it's good to see that they've, improved this where they can. Now, the next thing I want to talk to is actually this Logan Paul situation, as I touched on at the very start. And if you didn't basically see, Shine, who was the guy who sold Logan Paul that BBC wrapped case, a few years ago that turned out to be fake, has now sold Logan Paul a BGS 9 LeBron James exquisite rookie from 2003, the patch auto, and then also a PSA 10 Michael Jordan rookie. Now, for those of you that follow me on Instagram, you would have seen that I talked about how this is really poor on Logan Paul's part, because he's still not repaid those guys that he scammed as part of that CryptoZoo situation. And I should use the term scam lightly. He has an obligation based on the things he said to try and make that product work in the end. So I think it is somewhat fitting. But it's just pretty poor form on his part to be spending that kind of money, which is upwards of $1 million USD, on 2 sports cards, while he's got people out there that have lost, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, as was explained in those CoffeeZilla videos. If you haven't seen those, please check it out. The thing I want to talk to here, though, is if you look at the comment section on this, and I'm not here to try and ruin the experience for people, right? But if you look at the comments, everybody's like incredibly excited. Some people are joking around about how Shine referred to this as a starter kit. It's not really a starter kit, because it's some of the most expensive cards in the hobby, but people are sort of excited because they want, Logan Paul to bring this sort of stuff front of mind again and try and elevate the hobby. And the one thing that I want people to be wary of with stuff like this is, I don't want you to forget what happened in 2019 and 2020 and 2021 when these people came in and spent big and did the same sort of thing, right? Is this, a sign of another run-up by some of these, high net worth individuals trying to either create hype to offload cards, or just to create some buzz to line their own pockets again? I think it's hard to argue against that given what we've seen in the past, but that's the thing I want people to keep front of mind. Like, is this good? Cool. Yeah, sure. I'm not hating on it, but don't think this is going to elevate the hobby to a point where you're going to be making a lot of money off the back of this. I think, things like this potentially do more harm than good. They create a mini bubble, but at the same time, I don't think this is going to do anything to the hobby to what we saw in 2019 and 2020. If you're seeing this and thinking that things are going to go through the roof again, shoot to the moon like they did in the past, that's not going to happen. Because if you look at essentially what occurred over that time frame, and I'm not, saying anything groundbreaking here, it's pretty common knowledge, but the rise happened primarily because people were grading the wrong things, buying the wrong cards, paying big money for the wrong things. We had a really big uneducated pool of collectors enter the hobby with, stimulus money, buying things left, right, and center, spending money on base cards and all this sort of stuff. And that's what, created the new floor for some of these expensive cards to reach new heights. If we see a lot of buzz around these high-end cards again, a lot of hype, and we start seeing those prices get pushed up again, you're not going to see the buyers and the collectors make the same mistakes they made 2 to 3 years ago. So if you're banking on this thing going through the moon off the back of stuff like this, stunts like this, marketing like this, I think you're a little bit naive. And I'm not trying to hate on anything like this. I think this stuff is cool. I like seeing sports cards be talked about in the mainstream. I like seeing, some of these things that people used to call me a nerd for when I was a teenager, right, and a young kid, for collecting cards. I've done it my whole life. So I like seeing it become mainstream. I like seeing people, sit back and say, you know what, that is actually really cool. So I'm not trying to shit on that experience at all. I'm just trying to say that, this stuff isn't always good, and make up your own mind, obviously, but just, think of that when you're seeing this sort of stuff happening. Why is it happening? I'm just, just trying to put this out there, etc. So I'm rambling now. I hope you liked the video. Please share your thoughts down in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.